I just like to say that I'm very excited about being on YouTube right now, and I look forward to making friends with new people.
We live in a society and children are not immune to capitalism. In other words, I chose to use a public relations project to unpack a tumultuous experience from my childhood. PR, or public relations, is often conflated with controversial things. Couples get together to promote something as a PR stunt. Something outrageous is a PR nightmare. Publicity, celebrities, you might think it's like the inverse of paparazzi, where people do something outrageous for attention, but it's not. It's actually the opposite of that, though the definition has been wibbly-wobbly over time. A modern explanation of public relations would be ethical and efficient communication between a party and a diverse public. They want to stop or control the chaos, not incite it. Hasbro is an American toy and multimedia company best known for brands like Monopoly, Nerf, and My Little Pony. They've been hailed as one of the most ethical companies in the world for like 12 years, and their corporate social responsibility values include diversity, human rights, product safety, environmental responsibility, and responsible marketing, which Hasbro calls an important part of how we uphold our commitment to children and their families. Littlest Pet Shop, or LPS, is a collectible toy line of small animal figures first created in the 1980s by company Kern. Kern was later bought in the 1990s by Hasbro, and in 2005, Hasbro re-debuted Littlest Pet Shop in their own style, which was a bit more simplistic, but a cute and charmingly detailed representation of the animals. LPS was marketed toward girls and massively popular with tweens and teens. The LPS fandom had a strong presence online, and LPS Tube, the YouTube fandom, thrived with figureheads and filmmakers used the pets to tell different stories. The pets had endearing, mostly neutral expressions, and the size of their playsets allowed for small-scale productions. Some series were so popular, some of their actors would be highly sought-out collectibles. At their base forms, LPS had big, wide-eyed, bobbly heads, softer than their quite stable bodies. LPS had so many different species and styles, and there were punk ones, and there were fairy ones, and sparkles, and rainbows, yet they were still identifiable as what they were when LPS tubers represented themselves as a pet. They could be anything they wanted. Although most people usually picked a dog or a cat, the two genders, but you could be anything and it was awesome. In 2012, Hasbro started a stylistic overhaul of Littlest Pet Shop to reflect its new animated television series, which had the best premiere of a series on the Hub network. I've heard it's good. I haven't seen it. I refused to watch it out of spite. As for the pets, everything was completely different, to the point it was almost unrecognizable, and it received a lot of widespread negative reception. The changes physically cheapened the pets, so they couldn't be used in the same ways. They couldn't stand up anymore. They came with their own expressions, and their own names, and their own stories and characters. It's called Littlest Pet Shop. It's like a pet store. You're supposed to adopt them and name them and characterize them yourself. Our fury was definitely more than just how they looked. I'll be unpacking how Hasbro handled LPS as a brand, the effects of the change on its demographic, and how Hasbro handled public relations with countless raging children. Part 1. Lore. A timeline of mostly Hasbro Corporate's annual reports addressed to shareholders so we can watch the fall of the LPS brand in real time. 2010. Littlest Pet Shop is a Hasbro franchise brand. It is one of their favorite children and gets to be one of the faces of the company. From 2010 to 2011, LPS has decreased revenues, and in 2011, Hasbro reports that it will be supported by television programming, kind of like how My Little Pony Friendship is Magic supported the My Little Pony toy line. But they also said that despite the decreased revenues, it still was a significant segment of net revenue. We had our niche, we had our little community of collectors. We were keeping them stable enough. 2012, the Littlest Pet Shop show was a huge hit to hundreds of thousands of viewers in its premiere. 2013, physical toy sales decreased again. I wonder why. Hasbro heightens focus on their franchise brands, including LPS, and pushes to further integrate the show and the toys. Leveraging the success of our global television content, Littlest Pet Shop is poised for a relaunch in 2014, with new products and an integrated entertainment, social media, and digital campaign, adding to the robust global girls portfolio of Hasbro brands. At this point, LPS fans are actively fighting against this massive overhaul, attempting to directly challenge Hasbro's PR. Boycotts, petitions, phone calls to Hasbro Consumer Care, anything they can do. And it is at this point that multiple LPS tubers become PR historians of a phenomena not very well documented even in academia: direct PR between an entity and children. Multiple phone calls have similar wording. This is how they trained for this.
Alrighty, so I wouldn't know if we will will be putting those back in stores. I don't have any future product information, but I'd be more than happy to go ahead and pass your comments along to our Littlest Pet Shop team so that they know that you would like to see the old ones make a comeback, okay?
Also in 2013, I personally contacted Hasbro with concerns about a new style of pet. Specifically, my penguin Ernesto I found to be made of cheaper material. His head is not a bobblehead, it's like a swivelly thing that moves like a joystick, and you can take it off
The bottom could be a choking hazard for younger siblings, and the head could be destroyed or choked on by animals or dogs. And they told me, we recommend you discontinue the use of this penguin. What they basically said was that I could ship it back to them, return it, they would evaluate it on that safety. And yeah, not too safe.
A few days later, I got a physical letter from Hasbro addressed to parents like you, as if children like me couldn't have critical thought about things, offering for me to mail the pet in for them to inspect it. Which in hindsight is completely illogical, because don't you also have your own copies of this little guy? Why do you have to take my little guy? You've already taken so much from me. Why do you need this one too? It wasn't the response I wanted. I threw the letter away. I was angry like so many other people were. We felt powerless, like our opinions didn't matter if they ever had. Meanwhile, the relaunch failed. In 2015, Littlest Pet Shop is included in Hasbro's highest priority franchise brands, which are also the furthest in executing the brand blueprint. Developmentally, it had nowhere else to go and was coming to a disadvantageous standstill. 2016, specifically June 4th, Littlest Pet Shop the series finally comes to an end. 2017, Littlest Pet Shop is demoted from franchise brand to emerging brand, and Hasbro gives several reasons for this. 1, to be more responsive to market trends. 2, to reinvent the brand. And 3, because it requires a different developmental approach at this point, you think. They dug a hole that they can't dig themselves out of, because lower revenue means cheaper materials and production means a self-perpetuating cycle. From 2018 to 2020, LPS continues to decline despite Hasbro's every attempt to revive it. In 2018, a new series, Littlest Pet Shop, A World of Our Own, does even worse than its predecessor and is cancelled in 2019 after one season. In 2020, new LPS line releases cease entirely, and in 2021, the brand is dropped from Hasbro's annual reports. Maybe Littlest Pet Shop wasn't ever destined to get bigger than it was. Maybe it was just popular with like a select generation. Hasbro placated their young demographic with friendly PR, and they promised their shareholders that things would get better through media and content integration and reinvention, but nothing could ultimately prevent the brand's downfall, because it's more than market trends and development and numbers. It's vindicating. We were right. They were suffering with us, and the brand fell down and all that. So why doesn't it feel better at all? Part 2, psychological analysis.
New wall!
So in my academic research, I didn't find a lot of literature directly researching public relations between brands and children, but I did find research analyzing the relationship, with findings I think should inform how companies go about public relations with kids, and could help us maybe understand why we felt ways that we did about certain toy design changes. Alvarez et al. 2021 proposed a theory of change in consumer brand relationships, finding that strong brand relationships, particularly in the domain of fandom, may become toxic, and the conflict pattern can include denial of separation, polarization, and rejection of new elements. In other words, I reject your reality and substitute my own. The new ones aren't real, the old ones are. You know who doesn't like change? Some neurodivergent people. I didn't know Littlest Pet Shop was a special interest. I just knew I needed to possess every single one of those little creatures to have a consistent interest is a really grounding thing for kids. So to change it is gonna be a pretty rough breakup. Tang et al. 2012 examined self-brand connections in response to brand failure. Self-brand connection is how much you identify with a brand, and consumers with high SBC respond to negative brand information the same way they do to personal failure. They experience a threat to their positive self-view. You don't just like LPS, you are LPS.
The thing that you invest your time in can feel so important to your identity that occasionally you feel like you need to close it off from other people in order to keep it safe. In high school, I didn't have a lot of friends, or like I didn't connect with a lot of people, but I did have this comic book. And now this comic book is super popular, but these people don't like me. That must be because they're not real fans.
Anne Fleury et al. 2014 examined the relationship between high brand community involvement, HBC, and mental health. Brand communities are just fandoms for the thing, like we had LPS tubers and content creators and collectors. Arguably, a lot of us were highly involved. HBC adolescents are more susceptible to interpersonal influence and are also more likely to experience social anxiety and and periodic depression than their less involved counterparts. So, for whatever reason, if we were less comfortable with communities outside of the thing, we had communities within the thing. And of course, we were highly involved, we were encouraged to be. The tagline, "How big is your littlest pet shop?" was reinforced by things like the booklets that came with them to check off as you collected the little dudes.
Then Miss Walkables LPS. I took the one off because I had that.
Then we had LPSO, LPS Online, the multiplayer massive game. Everything was centered around collecting and community. You put so much of yourself in one thing, that one thing can hurt you a lot, and it's not your fault, especially when you're just a kid. Part 3, how to PR without making an enemy of the children. Recommendations. 1. Prepare for the psychological implications of major overhauls. 2. Invest in focus groups with target demographics. And 3. Maintain a two-way symmetric consumer brand relationship. Basically, just be transparent with them. Kids are smart. Act like it. On June 26, 2015, teen LPS tuber Nina Sarpo hosted the first ever LPS Con, an annual convention for LPS enthusiasts in Las Vegas, Nevada. At this event, collectors have a safe place to share their LPS interests and hobbies with others. Fans of different ages attended the event and populated the venue with mostly older generation pets. Over the years, the event successfully expanded to different regions and Canada. The great overhaul of the 2010s felt like my childhood getting ripped apart, as I'm sure it felt for many other people, so endeavors like LPSCon helped fans reclaim their self-connected brand community. If Hasbro wasn't going to give them what they wanted, they could preserve what that aspect of their identity meant to them in their own ways. Hasbro appears to be revamping Littlest Pet Shop one more time. In partnership with toy maker Basic Fun, they're relaunching Littlest Pet Shop in 2024, implicitly in the style of the old pets. This raises a few questions. Is Hasbro just capitalizing off of nostalgia with now adult consumers to whom they ascribe more agency, or are they genuinely trying to appeal the wishes of children from years ago, like we are spirits trapped in animatronics and they're finally gonna let us out? One Hasbro VP stated, "This move is a great example of our Blueprint 2.0 strategy in action, moving to unlock new categories for consumers and unleash the potential of our classic brands like Littlest Pet Shop, so I think we have our answer." Regardless of intention, brands and their public relations need to respect the autonomy and wishes of the children tied to them, and meet them right then, exactly where they are. And for everyone like me who may have experienced something like this, and for whom identity and figuring out who and what you are is just a bunch of wibbly wobbly stuff and probably always will be, this isn't you. You are. Jesus loves you. Bye.